If you want to know how to solve problems, then this video on strategy is the one to watch. Strategy has been defined by Sesame Street quite extensively, where a basketball player referred to as Mr. Dwight and Elmo jointly engage on a journey to explore the concept of strategy.
Hi, I'm Dwight.
Oh, and Elmo's Elmo.
And we're here to tell you all about the word strategy.
Yeah, strategy.
Elmo wonders, what is strategy actually?
Tell them what a strategy is, Mr. Dwight.
A strategy is a plan to help solve a problem.
A plan to help solve a problem.
So whenever you come across a problem and you need a plan to solve that problem, then what you actually need is a strategy. It's as simple as that.
When do you use a strategy, Mr. Dwight?
Well, I use a strategy when I play basketball.
Oh, Mr. Dwight does?
Yes, in basketball, you need a plan on how to win. That's a strategy.
Oh, wow. Well, when else can you use a strategy?
Well, let's say we were playing with this basketball.
Yeah?
And it went over the fence.
Oh, no. Mr. Dwight's basketball went over the fence.
We would need a plan to get it back. And that's a
Strategy. When else can you use a strategy?
Part of my video recordings were quite poor, and now I have a second camera that is able to capture the image way better. So
Oh, wow.
I've developed a plan that hopefully addresses the problem. There's a lot to learn from strategy, strategic management, in solving the issues that you face on a day-to-day basis. But for an academic analysis of strategy, the definition of a plan to solve a problem is not sufficient. You need a more specific definition. And Richard Rumelt was among the pioneering figures in economics who first came up with such a definition. The benefit of the wide view that the new camera gave me is that I now have a green screen on which I can project slides. So here you go. I don't know whether the screen is actually green, but I'm not only agnostic about sports, I'm also totally colorblind, so in my view it is a green screen. In Rumelt's definition of strategy, there are three key issues that you need to look into. First, you need to analyze the environment of the organization. Second, you need to analyze the organization itself. You need to know what the organization is good at and what it cannot do as well. And third, you need a guiding policy. So you need a coherent and consistent plan across all the levels of the organization. And that is what jointly makes up the corporate strategy. It's an analysis of the environment, an analysis of the strengths and the weaknesses of the organization, and a coherent set of guiding principles throughout the different departments of the firm. We talk about strategy at the very functional level, the operational level, where you talk about, for example, a marketing strategy. How are you going to bring your products to the market? But also a logistics strategy. How are you going to organize the distribution processes of the firm? One level higher, and that is what the next companion video is about, we talk about business strategy or competitive strategy, and that is about how you position the market and how you position a particular product in its market. So it focuses on single business firms, firms that sell only one product. Now, of course, in practice, firms often are active in multiple product markets at the same time. So they may sell, for example, ice creams in summer and ice skates in winter. Or they may be active in the market for shampoos as well as the market for butter. And what you then get to, and that's something that I won't discuss in this clip or the next one, is corporate level strategy. This level, you ask yourself, what businesses do we want to be active in? Which markets do we want to further develop? And do we want to grow by acquiring other firms or by through organic growth? And these are totally different topics, which are very interesting but not the subject matter for this video. So in this clip, I'm going to focus on the three components of strategy according to Rumelt, and then in a companion clip, I'm going to explain the two generic strategies for positioning a firm in a specific market. Initially, in the second half of the 20th century, economists had a so-called structure, conduct, performance model of strategy. They thought, and there's value in that, that if you study the characteristics or the structure of the market, then from that the conduct of the organizations, their strategies would result, and that would give you the performance of the firm. So if you, for example, knew how many players were active in a market, how sensitive consumers are to changes in the price, how dynamic the market is, then that would determine the pricing strategies and the product strategies of the firm, and thereby its the performance of each firm in its own industry. And the beauty of this approach from an empirical economist's point of view is that you don't need to observe anything within the organization, right? If you know the structure of the market, then you can immediately predict the performance of the firm without having to know anything about the fuzzy stuff that happens in between. And that was a fairly successful approach that learned us a lot about markets. The next step that kind of developed from the structure, conduct, performance model is the 5 forces analysis. And this is the part of Rumelt's definition where we talk about the external environment of the firm. And Michael Porter, who developed this model, looks at 5 different factors that influence strategy in an industry. So this is a model at the industry level, not at the firm level. First, he says, it is relevant for firm strategies to know what competitors you're facing. So how many competitors are they? How deep are their pockets? What strategies do they have? The second is the suppliers and the bargaining power they have. Do you, as a firm, have a lot of influence on the prices that you pay for the components of the products that you buy from them? If you're in the market for petrol, do you have a lot of say on the price of oil? The answer is no. So what is the bargaining power of the suppliers that supply their intermediate products to your firm? Third, consumers. What is their position? What is their bargaining power like? Are they very sensitive to changes in the price or not? Do they appreciate a large variety of products, or are they pretty much focused on one single thing? If you're in the market for petrol, people generally don't care about the smell of the product as much. But if you're in the shampooing business, people do. So depending on how many consumers there are and how sensitive they are to changes in the price, for example, what things they appreciate in the product, the rivalry looks differently in the organization. Fourth, there's the entry barriers. So how easy is it for new entrants to gain a position in the market? If that would be very easy, it wouldn't make an awful lot of sense to go to great lengths to try to push out your competitors in the market, because new ones would be likely to join straight away. If you're in social media, it is difficult to set up a new network, not so much technically, but rather to gain a large customer base, a large number of users of your social network. So the threat of entry in social media may not be as high. The final component of the model is the threat of substitute products. Substitutes are products that serve the same need as the product that you sell, but they're different products. So if you're into selling train tickets, for example, then a coach service, a bus service, is a substitute product. It also serves the means of transporting you from A to B, but not through trains. And taxis are yet other substitutes to coaches and train companies. And depending how attractive and how many substitutes are available for a particular product, that of course gives you a position to charge higher prices or not for the products that you sell. The risk that your consumers will run off to suppliers of substitute products is likely higher or lower depending on the availability of such substitutes. So the first component of the model of Rumelt was the analysis of the environment, and the 5 forces model is a tool that you can use to inform this analysis. Then the second part is the internal analysis of the firm. What are you good at as a firm? And this relates to notions that we've talked about before, coming from stakeholder theory. What a firm is good at depends on the resources that it has at its disposal. If a firm has something that its competitors don't have, then if that something meets certain criteria, which we'll get into in a bit, then this firm is able to have a sustainable competitive advantage over competitors in the same industry. These conditions for the something that you then have are that it should be it should be valuable, rare, inimitable, and non-substitutable. So, again, firms get and organizations get resources from their environment. They get resources from stakeholders. Finances put in money, suppliers sell their products, employees put in their time, etc. And to the extent that what you receive from your stakeholders is valuable in the market and is rare, it is more likely that you're able to build a competitive advantage on that resource. So if your employees have very specific knowledge, they are very valuable to the organization, and they may be able to create products that competitors are not able to match, then your employees may be the source of your competitive advantage. And if other firms don't have such employees, they may not be able to have a similar competitive advantage, and hence they could not be able to have such profits as you would have. Now the resources should not only be valuable and rare to be able to build a sustainable competitive advantage, they should also be non-imitable and non-substitutable. Imitability has to do with the extent to which you can copy a resource. So if you would have, for example, a great design of the products, then that design could be the source of competitive advantage. But if others will be able to copy your design and kind of backwards redesign their own product, then your advantage would only be short-lived. Your competitive advantage would easily erode because competitors are able to copy your behavior. And that is why, for example, there are patents in pharmaceutical markets to ensure that you're not able to copy, that you're not able to imitate the competitive advantage of a pharmaceutical company that is the first to come up with a vaccine or a cure to a particular disease. Non-substitutability has to do with the absence of other resources that would be able to, again, meet the same need. So if you would have great staff members that give you an edge over competitors, but these competitors would have, robots who would be able to do the same thing, then they don't have your staff members, but they have something else that is able to generate the same advantage over competitors, and hence your competitive advantage would erode. So if you would get from your stakeholders resources in terms of money, people, skills, products, tools that are valuable, that are relatively rare, that are difficult to copy, and for which no substitutes exist, then these resources are potentially the source of an advantage that you may have over your competitors. So as a firm, once you've done your homework, so you've looked outside, you've analyzed the market, perhaps with the 5 forces model, And then you've analyzed the internal organization, perhaps with the help of the resource-based view. Then you have identified what the market is like, so what consumers would appreciate in the market, whether you will be able to get that, so whether you have bargaining power over those who would be able to supply the product. And you also know that you have the skills, that you have the resources in the company to actually deliver what the market needs. Then that is what your strategy should center on.
Yeah, strategy.
And this, in the end, is a story of fit, a story of contingency, organization theorists would say. For example, an innovative organization is likely to have a sustainable competitive advantage in a market where consumer tastes change quickly. Other firms, say machine organizations or entrepreneurial firms, have a strong direction. So it's very clear what has to be done in each step, and that provides for a very reliable production process. Also a quite efficient production process. This is particularly valuable in markets where consumers have stable preferences, or when it is important to cooperate with suppliers in a consistent way because their bargaining power is substantial, for example. So in the ideal organization, in the profitable organization, there is a fit between what the market needs, which you'll learn from the external analysis, and what the organization is able to offer, which you take from the internal analysis of the resources that the organization has at its disposal. Once you've done this analysis, the next task is to come up with the guiding principles. So the actual strategies. What are you going to emphasize in the market? Is it going to be the price? Is it the color? Is it the taste? What aspect of the model are you going to use in the business level strategy? And that, the competitive strategy of the organization, is the topic of the next video.